This is Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Behind the Mic is live on this Wednesday night, August 1st, 2018. Grunions Sports Bar and Grill, our location here in Manhattan Beach. Brad Dalius, Keith Jackson coming to you online at BehindTheMicShow.com. Also available on the Behind the Mic app. Live streaming right now across social media. A busy night is on tap for us. We have a lot to get into, a lot going on off the field right now, that being off the college football field with Ohio State. We'll get to that in just a second in the Urban Meyer situation there in Columbus. Also tonight, we're going to talk about the Patriots releasing Jordan Matthews. We've mentioned how the Pats have been thin at wide receiver recently. Perhaps they bring in Aaron Decker now to replace the injured Jordan Matthews, and we shall see. A lot to get into with that later on. And Sean Marion, the former San Diego Charger, just signed a deal to box in a couple of months. We'll discuss that towards the end of tonight's show. But we now bring in Keith Jackson. Great to have you with us. A lot of people inside here at Grunions. Busy night on this first night of August as we kick off, officially 1 month away till football really gets going. And obviously we got the Pro Football Hall of Fame game tomorrow night, Bears and Ravens from Ohio. So now it really gets serious once you turn and flip the calendar to the month of August as far as football really being back in the visual spectrum, sort of say. But like I said, we're going to start tonight with college football. Urban Meyer, the situation at Ohio State. You probably heard about it. If you haven't yet, the breaking news that went down in the last couple of hours was that Ohio State officially placed Urban Meyer on paid administrative leave in the wake here of an investigation they're going to launch into Urban Meyer and his knowledge of former assistant Zach Smith, I believe his name is.
Yes.
Yeah, former assistant Zach Smith and his history of domestic violence. That's basically what's going on currently right now. The Big Ten Media Day just happened last week, in which Urban Meyer denied any knowing of this situation, kind of contradicting himself, though, based off of firing Zach Smith a day prior, I believe, on July the 23rd. So now I believe Urban Meyer is saying that he obviously knew about some things, but he doesn't have knowledge about this 2015 incident that was just reported yesterday by Brett McMurphy, formerly of ESPN, college football reporter now, who has an illustrious track record, Keith, of reporting the news. He's basically been hailed by all media outlets. This guy knows his stuff and is not going to put anything out there that's not true. So this is what we have currently going on right now. There's a lot of confusion with it, but what shouldn't be confusing to people is this same type of scenario that is playing out across college campuses, whether it be what happened recently at Michigan State, Penn State several years ago, locally here at USC, with some of the things that have gone on recently, and with the president being forced to resign, and all these different cases across college sports right now and on university campuses. Basically, it's somewhat of guilt by association. We're not fans of guys being asked to go on administrative leave or being fired immediately or asked to resign, whatever the case may be, but this is the trend right now, and everyone is holding true to it as far as the top people at universities and colleges. Your take?
Yeah, I mean, it is the trend right now. Do I think it's right? In some aspects, I think it's right. In some aspects, I don't think it's right. And what I mean by that is an Urban Meyer situation where I think, look, number one, I don't condone any man to hit a woman. That's number one. And I think that in his situation, if he allegedly said that he didn't know anything and he came out about that at first. And when you say that, then later on down the line, you come back and say, well, I may have known something, then that's where you dropped the ball.
Yeah.
That's what we have to say, where you dropped the ball. And if you did know something, then you should immediately remove Zach Smith from the team immediately. And then this would have rectified this whole situation. And then have, of course, authorities or whoever deal with it from there. But if you didn't know anything about it at all, and then they put you on administrative leave, then I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right at all when you allegedly saying you don't know anything at all, and then it comes back, then it's said that, Zach Myers-Smith's ex-wife now has said that he told Urban Meyer's wife about it.
Yes, they exchanged text messages.
They exchanged text messages to Urban Meyer about it. Now, that doesn't mean that Urban Meyer, maybe his wife knew about it, but that doesn't mean that Urban Meyer knew about it at the time. We don't know that. We don't know anything, and that can't be even proven. But where Urban Meyer dropped the ball, I think now it's that the fact that he said he didn't know anything about it, and then he didn't double down on that. He then came back and said later on that I may have knew something. When that had happened, then I can see why they put him on administrative leave.
He described the 2009 incident in which he knew that Smith was arrested for battering his pregnant wife, which was now the ex-wife, in Courtney Smith. And he basically, that was the incident he was referring to at the when he basically came out and said a day later that, yes, this is what I know. I did not know. Stu continues to say he doesn't know anything about the 2015 incident, which to me here is really the thing that Ohio State is honing in on, whether or not he had knowledge about that specific incident. Obviously, because he was at Ohio State at that point. In 2009, he would have been at Florida. That's the main point as far as what they're honing in on this investigation right now. Yeah. But again, this is guilt by association regardless. It doesn't even matter. And again, I take the example of locally here. Let's look at the president of USC, who was just forced to resign a couple of months ago. The incident about the doctor on campus at USC who mistreated evidently tons of different patients, spanning across, I believe it was several sports, both women and men included. President Nikias, who was just forced to resign recently here at USC, had no knowledge of what went on specifically. Yeah. He had no knowledge about it. When he did find out later, he didn't know it at first. When he did find out, he never lied about this, by the way. When he did find out about it, he reported it to the police. They actually took the evidence that they had. It wasn't much, but they took it to the Los Angeles Police Department and the District Attorney's Office. They declined to press any charges. Yeah. Now, fast forward to about a year or two later, which is now, when this all comes to light here and it gets reported on the news, he's forced to resign. Yeah. It doesn't even matter, Keith. That's the crazy thing. You might not know what goes on, but the fact that you're number one, you're either the president, you're the head football coach, whatever it is. If you have a prominent role on a big-time campus right now that's bringing in a lot of money, big-time program like in Ohio State, you're going to be culpable. You're going to be basically they're going to say you're responsible for this, and you're going to have to take a fall.
And that's when it's unfair, because in that situation, here's somebody who tried to do the right thing and tried to get and tried to bring it to authorities to their attention, and they just dropped everything. From that, then right then and there, then that's where it's unfair, and that's where I say some of this stuff is getting out of line, because it's all here. Sometimes it's all hearsay, and until it's really proven, then that's when I think something needs to be done when it's proven. If it's not proven, then you can't do anything about you. You really can't why are you going to put the head guy in command on administrative leave or fire him? Or remove him. By just association. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's the fact that if you knew something about it, you knew the history about it, and you didn't act on it at that moment in time, and you let it ride out, and then until you got caught and found out, some other people found out, then yes, that's when that person needs to be removed from that whatever company or athletic program, whatever the case may be. And Urban Meyer's situation right here, again, it's the fact that he did know about something, a history of something that happened in 2009. Even it happened in 2009, and he was over there at Florida, and this happened when it was at Ohio State. The fact that the guy
Now keep
he's
in
on
mind
your staff.
Yes, and he was on his staff at Florida at the time
Yes.
as well in 09.
Yes.
Yep.
The fact that he is on your staff and you know the history of this person, why even bring him on? Why bring him on? You know he was an abuser from that situation in 2009. Why even continue to have a relationship and bring this guy along in your next program?
Point.
It doesn't. That's where you messed up, Urban. That's where Urban Meyer messed up. And you know, he may have not known about the 2015. Maybe his wife may have just kept it between her and the other wives, or her and that person. You know, things like that happen. People do that.
Sure.
He may have not known, but to be in a situation like that from 2009, you don't put yourself in that situation. If you know that what was going on in 2009, he shouldn't be removed then away from the team and not associated with you and your staff whatsoever going into 2015.
It's an excellent point. Not many people are talking about that.
No, and that's where, to me, that Urban Meyer messed up and why I see why Ohio State had to put him on administrative leave. So, you know, it's fortunate this happened. My question now is that I know the power rankings came out yesterday.
Yes.
And Ohio State was ranked number 3.
That's correct.
Now, the official rankings haven't come out yet, but now since Urban Meyer is on administrative leave, how does that affect Ohio State's team in their ranking? Does that bump them down? Because I'm assuming if when power rankings at number 3, I'm assuming they're going to be top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
But now the fact that you don't have Urban Meyer on the sideline, and possibly he may not be there the whole season, depending on how long this investigation goes. I'm sure they're going to try to sew this up within the next week or so. But
really,
I think so.
Oh, I don't.
I don't think it's going to continue all the way on because number one, I think they're in national championship contentions right now.
They are.
They're up there, and that's big money. And I think they want to rectify this immediately. And it's Urban Meyer. They don't want a guy like that out of a job, or the amount of money they're paying him. They don't want him on administrative leave. They're either going to pay, like you said, we said off there, they'll probably pay him out. They'll probably fire him and move on and get another coach, or having the coach that they have right now replacing him, have him as a coach, because it's really too late to bring in another coach. That's to be honest.
Yeah, they're just going to – they promoted someone on the staff.
Yeah, college football is right around the corner, so they're not going to do that. But I think it's either going to be that, or he's going to be back on the sideline. He has no associate. He doesn't know anything about it. But it doesn't look good for Urban Meyer right now. It definitely doesn't. That's what the history of what happened in 2009 to now to 2015. It does not look good for him at all. And I wonder how it's going to affect the college rankings. I think if he's not on the sideline, they may drop to top 10, 11, or 12, or maybe top bottom to 15.
That's not too far-fetched to think. I mean, he's got a big impact on this team. Just look at where they're at now compared to before he got there. Yes, they obviously won a national championship under Jim Tressel back in 2002, 2003. But towards the end of Tressel's reign there, they started to slip a bit. As soon as Urban Meyer comes in, they get a whole flood of recruits that he brings in along with him, and they turn into, once again, a top 5 perennial national powerhouse who continues to be one of the top dogs in the country. So, yeah, no doubt, if you take him out of the equation, this team will drop a bit. And like you said, Keith, it's going to be very interesting to see when the first official AP poll comes out where they're going to be. I would think if, for whatever reason, if Urban Meyer is not going to be the head coach, at least to start 2018 or for the remainder of the season, yeah, I mean, you're thinking, I think it would, you got to give, I mean, Urban Meyer is good enough of a football coach that he makes the difference between a team being ranked maybe top 5 and dropping out of the top 10. So I'm with you on that one. This is huge. His legacy is at stake here. I mean, really, and again, it's a horrible deal if it's not true and he knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be the first time that someone's career ultimately came down because they either just, it happened under their watch. They knew nothing about it. They tried to do something about it, but for whatever reason, some people in the public thought they could have done more because they were the head football coach at a big-time program. Apparently, that means that you have capabilities that you can essentially go in and, whether that be, get people arrested, make sure things are taken care of. Apparently, a head football coach since the year 2010 beyond here in this decade, a head football coach at a big-time university means you have a lot more power than just being a head football coach. And there's some truth to that. But again, Keith, these guys should. What would it be? Urban Meyer, Joe Paterno at Penn State back in the day, Nick Saban, Alabama. You name any of the big-time programs. These guys are not responsible for every single thing that happens in these players. They can do the best they can. Look, this is 2018. We're putting these guys, these student athletes, in the best positions to succeed possible. But it's never a perfect system.
Yeah.
They're not gonna. These guys are not in charge of watching these guys left and right all the time. These guys have families of their own. They have their own kids. In some cases, grandkids. So again, Urban Meyer, I'm again like you, Keith. I mean, we're not condoning at all domestic violence. It's a terrible thing. It's an absolute terrible thing. And if he did know more about this than what he's currently saying, then yeah, he probably does deserve everything that's coming his way. But again, this is really about the rush to judgment and the rush to either force people to resign, place them on administrative leave. Again, I hate to see people's careers tarnished on day one of these reports because I don't think it's fair. I think we should let the process play out. Again, it's guilty until proven innocent anymore, and that's a dangerous trend that's going on, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, but what's bad about, because domestic violence, and domestic violence is the big issue. And let's be honest, ever since the Ray Rice incident, look, there's been domestic violence going around NFL,
Forever.
NCAA, football. I mean, forever, in all sports. It's been going on not just in sports, but just outside of sports on top of that. But I think what really shook up the world was the Ray Rice incident, and when it was on video and you saw it. And then people start to get a wake-up call and like, wow, this is really bad, when they saw what happened in that incident over there. So it's a very serious issue. And so anybody who's allegedly accused of doing domestic violence, and you have a huge stature behind you, and you're a big person that's, people know, it's going to affect a lot of things. In this case right here, Urban Meyer has really a lot to lose. Let me tell you what he has to lose. His football program, number one. The Ohio State has a lot to lose. Sponsorship, their Nike deal that they have, that could go away. And other endorsement deals that Urban Meyer has for himself, like those can go away as well. So when something like this happens, and I'm gonna fall back to 2009 again, then that's when you gotta think for a minute and realize what's at stake when it's first brought up. Is your future, your family,
yes,
your program, and it goes down the line. So you gotta act on those type of things very quickly, and I think that's what messed him up. And this situation that's going on right now for 2015, I think the reason why they're even put him on administrative leave, because it goes back to what happened in 2009. It happened just it goes back to that. It goes back to this guy that's on your staff has a history of domestic violence, and you brought him over here to Ohio State with us, and then now there's another incident, and we need to do something about that, because 2009, fine, maybe domestic violence wasn't as big deal, but 2015, oh yeah, it's a big deal. It's been a big deal ever since that Ray Rice videos come up. It's been a huge big deal. And it's sad to say that it hasn't been a big deal later on down the line, but now it is. And they're really hard on people now that have domestic violence. Have we seen Ray Rice playing football ever since that incident happened? No, he hasn't played. He hasn't played at all. He hasn't played a down or anything like that. So, and that's where it goes. That's where it goes. So, in his case, this could really hurt his career, man. His career could possibly be over after this.
If he is ultimately fired, or if there's somewhat of a buyout here where he is no longer the head football coach at Ohio State, he'll never coach again, Keith.
Yeah,
anywhere.
I don't believe he would, and that goes to the NFL, because that's number one. Domestic violence, they're not bringing you in.
No, this is serious stuff, and again, this is something that we live in a different era now. That's the biggest thing, and to your point, Keith, about the 2009 incident. Whether you have the best interest, in mind here, and you want to do right by everybody, anymore. You can't even touch these situations. Like you said about the '09 incident with Zach Smith. He knew about that. Why did he bring him to Ohio State? Why even risk it? Let's just say that he wanted to give him a second chance, sort of say. Now, there's some confusion as far as from the legal standpoint here, what's been going on with Zach Smith. He's not been charged with any crimes. Now, there is a restraining order that was granted to the ex-wife, Courtney Smith. The judge granted a restraining order that's in effect now, I believe, for the next 5 years, in which Zach Smith cannot go anywhere near within 500 feet of his ex-wife.
Yeah.
Now, that's a civil type of case they have going on. It's not a criminal case, but still, the judge there's enough evidence presented there to believe that Zach Smith is a threat to his ex-wife. So, you know what I mean? Like, we can't live in. I can understand where people are coming from, especially people from the old school thought of, it's not a criminal act. Let's let the whole thing play out behind the scenes. We want to give this guy a second chance. He hasn't been charged of a crime. That's kind of the old way of thinking, the old school way. But like you said, Keith, again, to your point, it's different now. Whether it be the Ray Rice incident, which was huge, obviously, as far as the NFL goes, I think specifically, but it's had a ripple-down effect, of course. And at other incidents we've seen, too, outside of domestic violence, because it all kind of fits along these same lines that if there's any hint of domestic violence or any kind of crime that's being committed or, you think are suspicious that one of your assistants is committing behind the scenes, you got to cut ties.
Yeah.
You got to cut ties immediately. And it doesn't matter if you want to give him a second chance, if he hasn't been charged yet, because you're on notice, sort of say.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer was on notice back in 2009 about Zach Smith and, the potential, what this guy is, being accused of domestic violence by his ex-wife and other incidents like that. So as soon as you get a hint of this, a whiff of it, you have to part ways. That's really the bottom line now. You cannot, because again, like we see here, even if you want to give a guy a second chance, even if Urban Meyer was trying to play it right by everybody, like I said, it can still come back to bite you because it's that look that you have of it's attached to you at the hip.
Yeah.
You got to cut ties with it. And again, it kills me, Keith. It really does kill me to see guys, head coaches in particular, because we've seen them recently. It kills me to see careers get tarnished like this because of how much work goes into it. How much work, whether it be a head coach, a player, a broadcaster, a news guy, whatever the case may be. It kills me because there's so much work that goes into it, so many years to get to this point. Yeah. And it all goes away like that. You got to be alert all the time, and you cannot let things go to risk. I think that's probably the biggest thing to look at.
Yeah. And then it also is what sucks is, his players knows what's going on right now. It is a huge distraction for them. For him to come out and say, I'm glad I'm post on administrative leave until this whole thing is done. Because, it does. It's a distraction to your team, and it's still going to be a distraction. They won't be able to get over this until the whole solution and everything is really rectified.
No question.
They're not going to go into camp thinking, oh, coach will be back or this is and that. They're not going to go into camp like that. They're going to think, well, is he ever coming back? Yes or no. We don't know that. It's hard for players to focus and zone in when they know that the captain of their ship is possibly not coming back. And then another reason is the recruits. The recruits that he gets in his following year. It really sucks for them because, look, now they come into your whole situation where they come into a whole new opportunity to play for Ohio State, but they're not playing for that exact coach that recruited them after they signed the whole national letter of intent. That's where it affects a lot of people.
Everyone.
And then what it goes back to your another point is this. Parents, when they send their kids to go out of a different state to go play for a school, that they are now in the coach's hand, and now that's their child. Let's be honest with you. Yes, they're young adults. They're coming out of senior year, maybe high school, and they're young adults. They're 17, 18 years old. But the parents are trusting that coach is going to take care of their son or their daughter in those 4 years because they're going to be with them majority of the time, not the parent. Now all kids should know what right from wrong is, but we've seen many of incidents that have happened. Josh Shaw from one of them for USC, and many things that's going on with USC beforehand, and to many things of even Jameis Winston incident that happened when he was over there at Florida State. But what I'm getting at is that the coaches have a responsibility to take care of those students and those kids. And I know it's like, wow, but this is not a kid, this is an adult. Well, he's on his staff, and he has a response. When everything comes back, the finger's going to go right back at one, the captain of the ship. It doesn't matter. This is your program. When they put the program in your hands, you're responsible for everyone. Now, depending on how tight you run your ship, that's what's determine what's going to happen. And like right now, Urban Meyer, he had a loose screw. And he trusted this guy, and even though he had a history of domestic violence, and it came in and bit him in the butt. And and it's fortunate, but I do think it's bad news for Ohio State and Urban Meyer after this. Now I think it's caught up to him. So I feel bad out of everything. Who I really feel bad for is the players.
Yeah.
It's the players because, look, power rankings, they were number 3. They're expecting to compete for a national championship this year. Not saying that still can't happen, but it's very hard that can happen when you lose the captain of your ship. And, things start to change. Players start to become distant, want to go somewhere else. And on top of that, an interesting thing is, will Ohio State grant those freshman players coming in, those incoming freshman players in, their national level intent? Can they get back? Will they be able to go somewhere else? That's the thing that's what people are going to think about, like these parents and these kids who are freshmen coming in. Now I can understand the sophomores and all of them because they've been there for a year, but it affects a lot of things for Ohio State. They can lose a lot of players because of this too.
Ryan Day, the offensive coordinator, is going to take over as the interim head coach for Ohio State, and you raise a great point there, Keith, about does the NCAA get involved? Because right now it's just an Ohio State University internal probe that they're going to do into Meyer's knowing of that 2015 domestic violence incident. No NCAA yet because they haven't violated – Ohio State hasn't violated NCAA rules, but as far as, like you said, can they potentially grant immediate transfer and then the ability to play right away to some guys who just signed on not too long ago? That would be an NCAA thing, you would imagine. Yeah. They would have to step in. So, yeah, potentially, Pandora's box could get opened up, and that could happen. But this really looks like it's the tip of the iceberg of this. It really does, and it just sucks. Like you said, it sucks for the players the most because they have nothing to do with it. They have nothing to do with it at all, and they have great aspirations. Obviously, like you talked about, potentially what they can do here in 2018. But it's a huge cloud that's over them now, and I can't see it getting resolved anytime soon. Even if they were to force him to resign or buy out Urban Meyer's contract within the next week or two, I don't even know if it's going to happen that quick. I think at least we're looking at probably a month. I don't think this will be resolved before they kick off on September 1st.
Yeah.
I think it'll drag into the regular season. I think they'll have Urban Meyer remain on paid administrative leave. I do think, though, at some point, I can't imagine him going back to be the head football coach there. I think he's coached his last game at Ohio State, and that's sad. But again, you have to know your audience. You heard that term before? People say that too. You have to know your audience. You know what I mean? You have to know people around you. It's so true in anything you do. And again, it's just not worth the risk anymore. If you know of an incident that someone had in the past, as much as that might be your best friend or maybe a protege of you, sort of say, maybe even a mentor of yours. As tough it is, I think you got to cut ties with that individual as soon as you know about it, because if it happened once,
it's going to happen again.
Exactly. That's what history tells us.
And that's exactly what happened in his situation. It's happened again, and it's fortunate. Look, you had a chance before to do something about it. You didn't do it, and now it's happened again, and now you're in jeopardy of losing your whole football program, and let's just say your career's in jeopardy as well. So I hope everything works out for Ohio State and their football team and those players, but right now, don't look too good.
It's Behind the Mic. We're live here from Grunions over on Sepulveda Boulevard, Manhattan Beach. We'll take a break. We'll dive into some NFL news on the other side. Jordan Matthews getting released by the New England Patriots today. What does that mean for their wide receiver depth? Also, former San Diego Charger Sean Marion, Keith. He's going to be boxing coming up pretty soon. We'll have the details. Keep it right here, Behind the Mic. Back after this.
There's a threat targeting America. One that's growing fast, but may still be hard to see. Lyme disease. Spread by tiny ticks, often smaller than the head of a pin. This dangerous disease is now more widespread than West Nile, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS combined. And if left untreated, it can lead to arthritis, facial paralysis, and even memory and concentration problems, often called brain fog. As the threat of Lyme disease grows to more than 300,000 projected cases each year, it's time for us to target Lyme disease. That means checking for ticks when you've been outside, even in your own backyard. It means seeing a doctor if you experience the symptoms of Lyme disease, which can include joint pain, flu-like symptoms, fever, fatigue, or sometimes a bullseye-shaped rash. Set your sights on stopping Lyme. Learn how you can target Lyme disease at targetlyme.org. Brought to you by the Stephen and Alexandra Cohen Foundation and this station.
Every 17 minutes, Make-A-Wish makes the impossible possible. They tame dragons. They bring Saturn to Earth. They help superheroes save entire cities. They even make unicorns fly. All to give children the strength they need to fight their critical illnesses. Every wish takes muscle. Help us make sure every wish comes true. Join us at wish.org.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Battles aren't won solely on the field. That's a common misconception. Battles are won within, over enemies of fear, enemies of doubt. In that place where promises are kept. Promises to oneself.
This is a physical training event.
Promises to one's community.
Helping people move debris out of their house.
Promises to one's country. In the heart of every Marine, you'll find a promise. A promise forever kept. A promise of battles won.
You're listening to Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Welcome back. Grunions Sports Bar and Grill, Sepulveda Boulevard, Manhattan Beach, on this Wednesday night, first night here as we kick off the month of August. Brad and Keith hanging out. We talked the first hour there a whole lot about the Urban Meyer situation currently at Ohio State. Placed officially on paid administrative leave here just a couple of hours ago. And again, this story looks like it's just growing legs here by the hour. Tip of the iceberg, as we talked about a little bit ago. So we'll keep tabs on that one as we go along, and we'll see if we get some more news and what comes out of it in the next 24 hours or so. I want to turn the page, though, now and talk a little NFL news. Training camp continues, obviously, this week. Tomorrow night's the Hall of Fame game. We're all looking forward to that. We've got Ravens and Bears from Canton, Ohio. Wasn't it last year, Keith, didn't they cancel the Hall of Fame game because there was or was that 2 years ago where there was a problem with the playing surface or something like that?
I remember something like that. I remember that. Was it last year? I don't think
Might have been 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Might have been 2 years ago. Yeah, the playing surface was bad. Kind of reminded me of back in the day, early 2000s, there was a game in Philadelphia at the old Veterans Stadium between the Eagles and Baltimore Ravens, and Brian Billick was the head coach of Baltimore at the time, and he refused to let his players take the field on that old field there at Veterans Stadium, which is a mess. It was the old school AstroTurf, but I think it was 2 years ago. I believe it was 2016 that they had the Hall of Fame game. They had to cancel it. So hopefully they have the field. I mean, they've had all summer to get it prepared, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully it's all ready to go, and that'll obviously be a prelude into this weekend's big enshrinement ceremony with a lot of well-deserving guys, Ray Lewis included, Brian Dawkins, a couple other guys as well will officially be enshrined into the Hall of Fame. Terrell Owens as well, although he won't be there. We'll talk a whole bunch about that coming up on Monday, our debut show on KBC with Pro Football Hall of Famer and former Oakland Raider Tim Brown and get his thoughts on everything that's going on. Hall of Fame weekend coming up here in the NFL. Coming up on Saturday night, they'll do the official induction. Do you like the Saturday night primetime induction better than how they used to do it during the day? Do you have a preference on that?
I really don't. I don't have a preference, but during the day, a lot of people are working, so can't catch it. So I rather
on a Saturday though.
Some people do work on a Saturday.
That's true.
And I guess you want to rather have it when everybody's kind of settled in. So I really don't mind it. I don't mind it wherever day it is.
Prime time is always, you can't beat prime time.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people are, Saturday, let's say this, if you're not working on Saturday in the afternoon, or let's say you're out, right?
That's true. A lot of people are.
Honestly, you probably want to have it at night where people are more settled in and watching, be able to watch it. Either that or in the morning time, early in the morning, 10 o'clock Pacific. That's 1 o'clock. What is that about? 1 o'clock East Coast time?
Yeah.
I'll probably work too.
Okay. I do like the build-up personally.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Under the lights, sort of say.
Exactly.
It kind of adds, that extra mystique to the whole ceremony itself.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the New England Patriots today released wide receiver Jordan Matthews, who they just signed to a contract this offseason. He was with the Buffalo Bills last year. Before then, he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and his season's over. He was placed on IR by New England, suffering somewhat of a hamstring injury in practice the other day, placed on IR, then immediately released for obvious reasons to free up a roster spot. And the guy that they should really sign now, Keith, is Eric Decker. That's no secret, no mystery there. They just brought him in for a workout the other day. That would be a great fit, so why not? I think it would work out great if they brought in Eric Decker.
Yeah, I think it would too as well, but I think they need to be putting in the phone call to Mr. Dez Bryant as well. I think that's another person that they can use in this situation. I don't really understand why they signed Jordan Matthews in the first place. He has a history of having hamstring problems.
He's got some speed. He's a bigger, almost like, I'm not saying he was as good as Anquan Boldin, but somewhat of a similar build, can be somewhat of like a possession receiver.
Yeah.
He had some quality years in Philly a couple years ago. The problem was that was a couple years ago, and like you're saying now, he's gotten some injury. He's caught the injury bug last couple of years, whether it be last year in Buffalo or here with the Patriots in training camp. So, but yeah, they're paper thin at this point at the wide receiver spot. Decker, they could use a Dez Bryant as well. And man, again, I keep harping back on it, but I think the loss of Danny Amendola to the Miami Dolphins is
really-
really going
yeah.
to kill them in September.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, when you look at their wide receiving core right now, you have Julian Edelman's not going to be ready for another 4 weeks when the season starts. You got Malcolm Mitchell, who's on questionable, who's injured right now, and they were talking about trading him and releasing him. So really, the only healthy guys you got out there in the receiving core is Philip Dorsett, Kenny Britt, and Chris Hogan. That's it. And that does not look good.
No, that does not scream excitement.
That's not good. And what does that do? That puts more pressure on Mr. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, which is now easier for a lot of defenders out there to defend. I mean, you got a very good Jacksonville team out there that can, and I believe they play them week 2.
They do.
That you can rake that up as a loss.
In Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville on top of that. If they don't pick up another receiver that's going to be a threat. You need a receiver out there that's going to be a threat. Is Eric Decker that? He's a decent, pretty good receiver. Kind of reminds me of a Jordy Nelson type of player. But, I'm looking at, you need a big receiver that people are going to respect and who's going to be that. They're going to bring that safety over to defend. And to me, that guy is Dez Bryant. Out of all the receivers out there, that guy's Dez Bryant. I still think it was a bad look that they let go Brandon Cook. I think the Patriots are shooting themselves in the foot for that. The great Rams got them, and congratulations to him. He got his money. I think that was a fantastic pickup. And, fine. He didn't have the greatest Super Bowl, but I think that was all nervousness. But what he's done the whole season for the Patriots, Brandon Cooks, he was a great addition. And I think Brady was getting comfortable with that. And now, you get rid of it, and now you're in the situation right here, you're going to need a receiver that's, to me, that you're going to bring that safety over and defend. And it's going to open up a lot of those slot passes for the James Whites, the Chris Hogans, the Philip Dorsetts, the Julian Edelmans when he comes back. Because right now they're easy to defend.
I was not in love with Brandon Cooks. I'm still not.
Really?
I like the addition of him coming to the Rams. I think that's going to work out great because, Jared Goff continues to obviously grow in confidence here in his early NFL career. He needs big explosive guys like that who can obviously, they can have breakaway speed and he can throw the deep post to, fade route, whatever. But as far as New England goes, that's a whole lot of money to pay, and they don't want to pay it. I mean, he had a fine year for them last season. I liked, like you said, him and Brady started to connect, but Brady can connect with just about anybody.
Yeah, he can.
So I'm not in love. I'm not in love with Brandon Cooks. He's a fine receiver. I like him. He's good, but I'm not in love with him.
But again, look, you do got a guy who's a lot older, and and it puts a lot more pressure on a guy who, look, every team tries to figure out a way how to get to Brady. What is one best way to get to Brady? Well, get receivers that he can. You do a bump and run, play up man to man on them, and the bump and run. You can get to Brady because those receivers can't get open. You have no speed on this receiving core team. Besides Julian Edelman, who can get open, he can't really break speed like Brandon Cooks can. Brandon Cooks will get open. If you bump and run him, that's it. It's over. He's going around you. You need a receiver, either a big body receiver who can spread out and you can throw the ball to him like a Julio Jones, a Mohamed Sanu, those type of guys. Or you need a speedy receiver that can get and make separations. You don't have that on your receiving core right now. You just don't. And I don't know where you're going to get it, but when you got rid of that, I think now they're in a situation where, look, now you're desperate. You got to go Eric Decker, who's coming off an injury as well, a season injury, I believe.
He didn't play much last year at all.
He didn't play much last year, so you're bringing him back, and you probably had him work out to see what he can do. And then, to me, the obvious play is to go for a Dez Bryant who still has a lot to be proved. I think has a lot in the tank, and it wants to prove something. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks. But hopefully hopefully they're thinking about bringing somebody else over.
We know this about Eric Decker. If the Pats don't sign him, it means he's got nothing left.
No.
Because they brought him in for an official workout, and if he still doesn't get a deal with them, that's just telling us that New England knows he's got absolutely nothing left in the tank.
Yeah.
Now, they could go after Dez Bryant, like we've talked about. There's other guys who have been in the organization there before and kind of know what's going on with the playbook. There's some potential they can go out and kind of take a peek at those guys on the market. Antonio Gates is not someone they're probably going to target, but who is out there as a tight end. If he still has anything left he wants to play for at this point in time, he thinks he can kind of lace him up. But yeah, I mean, make no mistake about it. This is not a Super Bowl caliber roster right now at the wide receiver position.
No.
And now we have seen this movie before where it looked like they had nothing at receiver going into seasons. And although they might have gotten off to slow starts, they were able to figure it out at some point in time.
Yeah.
So that could very well happen again here. The problem is, though, is like we've talked about before, he's going to rely heavily on Gronk. And if Gronk goes down, you're really screwed. You've got nothing at all.
You have nothing. And that's nervous. And then that goes back to the point that Gronkowski deciding does he want to come back or not. And because of that, it's just those situations. It's like you're putting all the pressure on me to do things. If he goes to other teams, and teams that are not going to do that, then they got other receiving cores like maybe a Giants or a threat,
Sure.
A Pittsburgh Steelers who's got Antonio Brown on one side.
Pittsburgh's just loaded.
Yeah,
loaded
they're
at
loaded.
receiver.
They're loaded. Then it just I get that whole situation. Maybe they're waiting for camp to come, and when somebody drops, people drop people off, and then they'll come and pick somebody up. I don't know, but I think if you make a move now, it'd be a better fit for you. If they make a move on someone like a Des Bryant, it gives him more time to get accustomed to a Tom Brady. Also, what he's doing as well as learning the playbook. And I just think it'll be a great fit. But you know what? You haven't seen them do any big moves like that ever since after Ocho Cinco.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's something they would consider doing because they went down that route before.
Yeah, and just look at Philip Dorsett. Bill Belichick has commented quite often here in the last couple of days about Dorsett and his progress.
Yeah.
Being officially, even though he came over last year, this was his first full offseason with the team. And obviously, as we've heard over the years, that makes a world of difference because the playbook is so complicated. And there's just so much to learn to actually become a cog in that system, what they do there on offense specifically at the receiver position. So even if they were to bring in an Eric Decker, it's, there'll be some there'll be a little bit of growing pains there, as there has been with a lot of guys they brought in over the years at the receiver spot. But I still think they will probably find a way to figure out how to get by with what they have during the month of September without Julian. And I think it's going to hurt them. They're not going to go undefeated by any stretch in that. They're not going to go 4-0. They might only go 2-2. Or then, they might actually maybe – I can't see them going 1-3, but it's possible. It's possible.
It's definitely possible.
It's not easy. Like you said, at Jacksonville week 2, they open up week 1 against the Houston Texans. So
that's not going to be easy.
No, not at all. So those first 2 games right off the bat are very, very difficult. And, it's not easy. Now, again, it is Bill Belichick. It is Tom Brady. As long as those two are there, you think the possibility is they'll be able to figure out whatever predicament they're in. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. Maybe it's different. But again, I keep harping back on the fact that there's no one in their division who's ready. I mean, Buffalo and the Jets still don't really have a established quarterback at this point in time.
Yeah.
So you have Miami if they can ever get it together, but I don't have confidence in the Miami Dolphins and Ryan Tannehill to seriously push the Patriots.
But you got to understand what they always are fighting for is playoff time, home advantage, that number 1 seed spot, because they want to typically play at home. And Jacksonville is going to be better this year than what they were. Maybe this is your Pittsburgh Steelers get it together. Mm-hmm. You don't know that, and that we don't know who that for. That person with Kansas City, maybe Titans. The Titans may get it together as well. They're better than what they were last year. So you just don't know in terms of that, and then you don't know where they fall. On paper, I'll say this. On paper, looking at this roster, if it was in the playoffs right now, I'd say Patriots would be the 3 seed. On paper, so I would say right now, I'm going with Jacksonville number 1, Pittsburgh, a very talented Pittsburgh at number 2, New England number 3. That's what I would go on paper right now, on roster paper right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. On paper, I still go because I have to see someone beat them. I still think, wow. See, I mean, if Pittsburgh, if they could ever get the whole thing together, I'll put Pittsburgh number 1. I still think the Patriots are number 2 because I just think there's still a big drop-off between Big Ben, Brady, and Bortles. So I gotta see it for a 16-game season into the playoffs from Bortles.
I've seen what we've all witnessed what Bortles did to Pittsburgh. We've all witnessed that. We've all witnessed that. Their defense is dynamic. They got a very strong defense, and Bortles himself beat Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm gonna say that right now. He
was phenomenal in that divisional game.
He beat Pittsburgh Steelers, so that's why I'm going over him. And like I said, Pittsburgh number 2 on paper, because if they ever get it together, and they tend to do this all the time, but if they can get it together, then they're going to be a great team. They're a very talented team.
Oh, so you have Jacksonville 1.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had Jacksonville 1. I had Pittsburgh number 2 because I've seen what Jacksonville can do and have done it to Pittsburgh. And I think right now, Jacksonville's defense is the best defense in the NFL. That's what I think.
Yes.
I think Jacksonville's defense is the best defense they're number 1 defense in the NFL. And I'll have to go Pittsburgh number 2 just on paper because I'm looking at the talent they have and how they just reloaded up. And I'm banking that they're gonna that they made their mistakes. They know where they need to go from, and they're gonna try their best to stay away from Jacksonville this year. They're gonna try their best to stay away from them. And I don't see and in New England, you got rid of some long-time linemen, O-line players. You got a new left tackle, and then you now have depleted your whole receiving core.
It really just comes down to if you put stock into the notion, bless you, if you put stock into the notion that the Patriots are going to drop off from what they've been the last several years.
I'm not saying they're going to drop off.
From the roster, like to me, right? They have a roster that's not looking great at the moment.
Yes,
but
at the moment
they still have the coaches. They still have probably the best O-line coach in Scarnecchia there. They have Belichick still. They have the quarterback. I just think that they still have the right position pieces to be able to get everything in place. I still think that I think they'll be able to work with what they have, but there's concern. There's no doubt there's concern. How could you not be when you've got Chris Hogan, Kenny Britt, and Philip Dorsett at this point?
And that's it.
Yeah, that's definitely there's definitely some concern there for sure. But getting back to Jacksonville for a second, that's going to be a monster matchup week 2, right? New England at Jacksonville. That's going to be phenomenal. I mean,
that's going to be a great game. Jacksonville is going to be hyped for that game because look, those are young boys out there.
Oh yeah,
they want revenge and they feel like they lost, that slipped up on them. So that's gonna be a great game.
Yeah, everyone's looking forward to that, no doubt, us two included. But again, I don't think I agree with you, Keith. I think Jacksonville has the best defense right now in the NFL. The offense, I just got to see Blake Bortles. I got to see the consistent performance from a 16-game season and into the playoffs. If I see that this year, they very well could go to the Super Bowl. They very, very well could go to the Super Bowl. Now, it's interesting because last year, and this is what some of the critics are saying, critics of Jacksonville, they did it in a division where it was a down year for the AFC South. Yeah. No Andrew Luck with the Colts, obviously. Deshaun Watson winds up getting injured for Houston. And you had Tennessee, who was just kind of floating through the regular season, and you really didn't have a great year out of their quarterback, Marcus Mariota, who really didn't turn on his great performances to the end of the season, into the postseason. So there's no doubt, I think everyone agrees the AFC South is much, much better this year.
Yeah.
So does Jacksonville continue to up their game and take a next step where everyone kind of is just behind them? Or does the rest of the division come up to them and, does everyone kind of go side by side? Fascinating to watch in the AFC South coming up here in the 2018 season. New England, like we said, they got to sign somebody. Paper thin at receiver right now. Let's get to Sean Marion and what's going on with the former San Diego Chargers, San Diego at the time, currently Los Angeles Chargers, obviously. He officially signed a deal, Keith, to be a fighter in a match coming up not too long from now for the World Bare Knuckling Fighting Federation to compete in a boxing match at some point later this year here in 2018. He kind of teased the possibility of competing in combat sports not too long ago, talking about mixed martial arts. This is a guy who they called him. His nickname was Lights Out during his career, and he was really hampered by a lot of injuries towards the end of his professional career. So I don't know if this has something to do with he still has something to prove to maybe himself and to a lot of people close to him, maybe even some of the fans as well. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. Maybe he needs the money. Maybe it could be a conglomeration of a couple different things. But either way, this is being pumped up to be a must-see event. It's going to be on pay-per-view. Again, a date has not officially been announced yet, but this will be available on pay-per-view later this year in 2018. Do you like Shawn Marion? Do you like this concept of him fighting here, bare knuckle style?
I don't get it.
You gotta be a little crazy, man.
I shake my head on this because I'm like, man, like you made a lot of money. You had a decent career in the NFL, well, a great career in the NFL, to that matter.
Kind of injury shortened, though, like I said at the end.
Yeah, and then you go ahead and you would rather play against some professional MMA fighters, which, listen, is a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. You got Greg Hardy out there right now and fighting in the MMA. And, and it's just, look, these guys have been training and stuff fighting for years. Greg Hardy's new to it. And he's had some good warm-up fights, but he hasn't really fought any big deal type of fighters.
I was going to say, I haven't heard Greg Hardy making big news headlines here recently.
Yeah, he hasn't fought.
So I don't think his venture has taken off quite yet.
They have slowly brought him in, and, because these guys, you got to respect that game, that sport. These guys are coming out and they're ripping your face off, and a lot of people get hospitalized. You're going to be down. Look, if you think football injuries are great, try to go ahead and fight you an MMA guy and get your knee busted out.
Not for everybody.
Or your arm or your shoulder if you have an arm bar. Those type of things. I just don't think this is the bright move on his part, I think. And I don't think it's worth the money. Like, it's not. You fight is a medical bill?
Yeah.
If you get knocked out, you can make some great money, right? But if you get knocked out and you end up getting injured really hard, that's your medical bill pretty much. And then physical therapy, all the money you got paid for, that's what it's taken care of. So it's a give and take. And I just don't, number one, just the fact that you're going into a fight, like, you already know, that has to psych you up on top of that. Like, the countdown, I'm about to be in the ring with a fighter. And
the competitive juices come out.
Yeah, and I may get punched out or knocked out, my teeth out, or something like that. Like, I don't like that feeling, to have that in my mind that in a couple of weeks I'm going to be in a fight.
No.
Nobody likes that type of feeling. You don't know what could happen. So I don't agree with it. I think Shawn Marion is reaching.
Didn't he do some broadcasting
work or something like that? Analyst. Or
I swear he was on NFL Network at one point.
I know, I did too. Or why don't you just go and coach some, mentor kids and go coach some kids in football? You got enough where you can do deals, like commercial deals and all kind of stuff. But I don't think fighting's the answer, man. MMA, leave that to the guys, martial art guys, and that been doing this for years. Just coming, you got to respect that game and know that it's not like being on the football field wrestling with somebody and you're pulling their face mask off, or you getting in a scuffle with one of your teammates in a football game or in a locker room. This is different. This is all now. This is one where it's like tap out or get knocked out. That's what this is about. So it's a little different.
Merriman has said, quote, "I get to train for the next 6 to 8 weeks and go show everyone what I can do." So take that. 6 to 8 weeks. It's going to take place at some point later this year. Looks like in the fall in Casper, Wyoming. Casper, Wyoming is the site. By the way, nothing going on in Wyoming.
No.
Nothing going on in Wyoming at all.
Hey, you go see Shawn Marion fight, though.
You will. This fall. And like I said before, it's expected to air via pay-per-view online. Interesting to see if someone picks that up. I can't imagine that's going to be like a Showtime deal.
Watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, something like that.
It's
going to be outside?
You can't do that on YouTube on top of that. Now YouTube TVs come up and you got to pay for YouTube TV and all that now.
Oh, yeah. It's legit stuff.
Yeah.
Are they going to do this outside?
Man,
do they have a venue indoors in Casper, Wyoming?
I'm assuming
that could house this type of event.
We know Kanye West goes down there to do his music, and so must be something down there in Wyoming.
I'm telling you, I've driven through Wyoming before, the whole state. Not much going on.
They tried Pocatello, Idaho. I think I topped you on that.
Really?
Hey, nothing in Pocatello.
Haven't been to Idaho yet.
It's nothing.
I'm not
but
missing
shout out
much,
to
though.
my Pocatello, Idaho people out there. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying. I'm from L.A. L.A. and Pocatello, Idaho is a big difference.
It's a little different, exactly.
You may have some awesome bars, but man, that's all you got.
When I was in Wyoming, I was chased down by a lightning storm. It was like raining. It was a mess. It was a mess. There's nothing going on. Now I believe there's some athletes and some celebrities who have homes in Wyoming, presumably to get away from everything.
Yeah,
literally
Phil
everything.
Jackson, Montana.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know, there's some got people like that, like the good old wilderness, the nature of the business, the nature. Let nature be one. Everybody likes that. It's cool to have that sometimes. It ain't for me though.
It's not for me either, but whatever floats your boat.
Hey, whatever. Wyoming, congratulations. You got Sean Marion coming down to fight.
We look forward to that at some point this fall, like I said, somewhere online via pay-per-view. More to come on that, no doubt. Also, more to come on the Ohio State Urban Meyer situation. We'll try and update everyone on that with the latest tomorrow night during our broadcast live over at Kings Cove inside the Toyota Sports Center in El Segundo over on Nash Street. If you haven't been out there, maybe tomorrow night is the night you do so. We'll be there 7 to 8 local time here in LA. Until then, for Keith, I'm Brad. Keep living the dream. We'll talk to you tomorrow night.